What is the status of women's rights in Tunisia these days? I've heard that there have been significant improvements in recent years.
Yes, you're right. Tunisia has made some impressive strides in terms of women's rights in recent years. It's a complex issue, and there are several aspects to consider.
That's true. Can you tell me more about the historical context of women's rights in Tunisia? I think understanding the past is crucial to gauge the progress.
Absolutely. Tunisia has a unique history when it comes to women's rights. Even before gaining independence in 1956, the country had a relatively progressive stance on women's rights compared to other Arab countries. The Personal Status Code, enacted in 1956, was a milestone. It granted women rights in marriage, divorce, and inheritance, setting Tunisia apart in the region.
That's fascinating. It sounds like Tunisia had a head start compared to some of its neighbors. How have things evolved since then?
Well, the journey hasn't been entirely smooth. While Tunisia maintained its progressive stance, there were periods of regression under different governments, especially during the rule of Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. His regime restricted civil liberties and women's rights, despite maintaining a facade of progressiveness.
I see. So there have been ups and downs. What about the situation after the Arab Spring?
The Arab Spring in 2011 brought about significant changes in Tunisia. It resulted in a more democratic system and a new constitution in 2014, which is often praised for its gender equality provisions. This was a turning point for women's rights, as Tunisia reaffirmed its commitment to gender equality and women's empowerment.
That's encouraging. What specific changes were made in the constitution to promote gender equality? The 2014 constitution explicitly recognizes the principle of gender equality, and it enshrines women's rights in several articles. For instance, Article 21 emphasizes the equality of all citizens before the law without discrimination. Article 45 addresses gender equality in elected councils, and Article 46 establishes the high authority for gender equality to oversee and promote gender equality policies.
It sounds like the legal framework is quite robust. How has this translated into practical changes in women's lives?
The legal framework is indeed robust, but implementation has been a mixed bag. There's still a significant gap between the legal provisions and their practical application. In urban areas, women often enjoy more freedom and opportunities, but rural areas can be more conservative, making it challenging to enforce these laws consistently.
I see. So there is a disparity between urban and rural areas. What about women's participation in politics and the workforce?
Women's political participation has improved since the revolution. In the 2019 elections, women won more than 50 seats in Tunisia's parliament, constituting nearly a quarter of the total. This was a significant milestone. However, women are still underrepresented in leadership roles. In the workforce, while there have been improvements, challenges persist. Women face discrimination in some sectors, and the gender pay gap is still a concern. Traditional gender roles and societal expectations can also limit women's career choices.
That's a common challenge in many countries. Are there any specific initiatives or organizations working to address these issues?
Yes, there are numerous NGOs and civil society organizations in Tunisia that focus on women's rights and gender equality. They work to raise awareness, provide support to women, and advocate for policy changes. The National Union of Tunisian Women, UNFT, is one of the most prominent organizations in this regard.
It's great to hear that there are organizations actively working on these issues. How about the role of religion in shaping women's rights in Tunisia?
Religion plays a significant role in Tunisia, as it does in many countries in the region. While Tunisia is often considered one of the more secular Arab nations, there are still conservative interpretations of Islam that influence societal norms and attitudes. This can create tensions between those advocating for a more progressive approach to women's rights and those adhering to traditional values.
So, there's an ongoing debate between secularism and religious conservatism. How does the government navigate this delicate balance?
It's indeed a delicate balance. The Tunisian government has historically positioned itself as a protector of women's rights and secularism. However, it also acknowledges the importance of religious values in society. Striking the right balance is an ongoing challenge, and different governments may have different approaches.
Given the complex dynamics, What do you think are the most pressing issues that need to be addressed to further advance women's rights in Tunisia?
There are several pressing issues. First, there's a need for more effective implementation of existing laws and policies to bridge the gap between legal frameworks and practical realities, especially in rural areas. Second, addressing gender-based violence and ensuring women's safety is crucial. Third, promoting women's economic empowerment and closing the gender pay gap should be a priority. Finally, raising awareness and challenging gender stereotypes and discriminatory attitudes are essential for long-term change.
Those are indeed important issues. Do you think international support and collaboration play a role in advancing women's rights in Tunisia?
Absolutely. International support can provide valuable resources, expertise, and advocacy. Tunisia has received support from various international organizations and countries to advance women's rights. Collaboration and sharing best practices with other countries facing similar challenges can also be beneficial.
It's good to know that there is a collective effort to improve the situation. Looking ahead, what do you think the future holds for women's rights in Tunisia?
The future is promising, but there will likely continue to be both progress and setbacks. The younger generation in Tunisia, in particular, is more progressive and open to change. As long as civil society, the government, and international partners continue to work together and push for gender equality, there's hope for a brighter future for women's rights in Tunisia.
Thank you for providing such valuable insights into the status of women's rights in Tunisia. It's clear that while there have been significant improvements, there is still work to be done to ensure full equality and empowerment for women in the country.
You're welcome. It's an ongoing journey, and it's important to stay informed and engaged in discussions like these to support positive change. Women's rights are human rights, and progress in this area benefits society as a whole.